The Congress of South African Trade Unions, Cosatu, has thrown its weight behind the Government of National Unity, calling for the group to move with speed to stimulate the economy. Cosatu held a media briefing at its headquarters on the outcomes of its three-day Central Executive meeting. The meeting looked at, amongst others, results of the recent general elections and the formation of a Government of National Unity. SABC News economics reporter Katlego Legodi attended the briefing and joins us live. Good afternoon, Katlego. Give us a little bit more information in terms of what came out of that press briefing.
A very good afternoon to you, Nastasia, and to our viewers at home. Coming to you live this afternoon from Cosatu House here in Braamfontein. This at the back of that media briefing of the CEC of Cosatu. This is where they were giving us a sense of the 3 days of that Central Executive Committee meeting and how things fared in terms of where the country finds itself. We know very well that Cosatu sits every 4 times, or 4 times in a year, this being the CEC, and this time around this was the second meeting for the year, coming through at a crucial time at the back of the elections as well. And top of the agenda is that the formation of the Government of National Unity, and we see the party or the federation saying to us here that as much as they move to really support the Government of National Unity, they would want to see economic policies protected, the gains of workers over time also protected, taking issue with some political parties like the Democratic Alliance, which they say within the GNU they have taken a posture that is to work against the workers. So they're looking at then how this GNU is going to come through for the workers. A reminder to you at home that Cosatu is the largest federation in terms of the workers, and they represent over 1 million of these workers that have been looking at this CEC and its outcomes in terms of how then things are going to fare, looking at the elections that did not give their alliance partner, the ANC, an outright majority here. So they took stock as well, Nastasia, as to really where we find ourselves in terms of them having campaigned for the ANC for that 50+1 majority, but that did not happen. And they're talking about also a day of action, a national day of action that they're planning later on in the year, where they'll work to really bring everyone together and consolidate in terms of fighting and protecting the hard-gained, workers' rights, or really the gains of the workers over time. I'm going to bring into the conversation now Mr. Mike Shingange, who's coming through as the first Deputy President of Cosatu, who'll just take us through the statement and give us a sense of really where we find ourselves right now. You have been consulting, you have been talking to your alliance partner, the ANC. Mr. Fikile Mbalula was here on the second day of your CEC, kind of addressing the members of the Central Executive Committee in terms of where we find ourselves as we speak right now. And you've called this briefing really more or less navigating this uncharted territory where the country and the GNU is concerned. Welcome to the SABC. Give us a sense of what came out of this 3-day CEC meeting.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to your viewers. Yes, as you correctly said, this was our second CEC of the year, and indeed it happened at a crucial time when our country finds itself into uncharted territory in terms of the struggle of the working class. So, of course, we took everything, the assessment in terms of our organizational strength, the progress we've made. As we say in our statements, we recorded the victories that in the period under review, the workers will have scored, including some of the legislations that were passed by the National Assembly, and some of them subsequently been signed into law by the President, including the National Health Insurance and the two-pot pension system going forward. But of course, we reflected on the outcomes of the election, to which we contributed vigorously, so in terms of campaigns. Wanted to ensure that our ally, the African National Congress, retains to power, because that, for us, was going to ensure that the program of changing the life of our people, which we call the National Democratic Revolution, is actually enhanced and not been delayed. We have, of course, suffered a bit of a setback. However, we are appreciative of the fact that the 6 million plus voters have still ensured that the ANC emerged as the largest party, albeit not reaching the 50+1% required. As a result, the ANC needed to ensure that it leads the coordination of forming a government so that the country can move forward. Having appreciated that, and the ANC having chosen the route they chose to have a government of national unity and include everybody else, we note and respect that part. We are looking forward to the content of the GNU, because that's what is important. For us, it's the content. It is not even more about who comes in. It's not even the name. The issue is that what is it going to go into the board of the GNU? What are the policy perspectives that is going to be pursued by this government, seeing that not only one political party will be held accountable for the implementation of their manifesto or the policies of government? How is it that is the government of national unity going to do in terms of the already accumulated but also already under threat workers' rights? Because even before we had the government of national unity, it didn't stop the workers having to fight very hard to defend themselves, to defend the hard-won gains of a democracy. We are skeptical about the inclusion of some of the parties that we know that historically, from 1994, they never actually wanted the ANC to be in power. That's why they contested them from 1994. They've never wanted the ANC to implement progressive programs that change the life of our people. They have made it clear that that's why they call themselves an opposition party. We are also clear, we can hear them. They're coming into this government of national unity to also ensure that the ANC doesn't do as it wishes, doesn't continue to implement its progressive policy. So we are hopeful, and we're going to ensure that we help the ANC to remember that much as the ANC is having a reputation of representing just about everybody in the country, they must also know that the Democratic Alliance, the Freedom Front Plus, will not forget who they represent, the government of national unity. There's no ambiguity about that. The Democratic Alliance represent those that are economic and political adversaries of the majority of South Africans. They represent people who are anti-affirmative action. They represent people who want to make profit out of the suffering masses of our people. I mean, the Freedom Front Pals, we know what they represent. So it is going to be very important for the rest of us to ensure that the ANC does not forget that much as is the multi-class organizations and omnibus, they also have a responsibility not to forget that there are people that are looking unto them for their interests to be advanced by this GNU led by the ANC.
But these parties have arrived. They're part of this GNU, and we know very well that there's that statement of intent as well, where all of these parties are concerned, and we know very well as well that President Cyril Ramaphosa, it's a waiting game right now in terms of who then he appoints into these cabinet positions, and the Democratic Alliance, according to reports, have made it clear that they want the deputy presidency, that position, to go to John Steenhuisen. There are other key portfolios within the economy where they would want their role players, their MPs, to be ministers there. What is your sense in terms of the approach to this, and how does the president then move in this particular space?
Well, we're not worried about that. In fact, we're not surprised about what the Democratic Alliance is demanding. If you remember, our big issue was an agreement between the ANC and the Democratic Alliance, because we knew what that will represent. We were a bit comforted when that did not become a collusion between the DA and the ANC, but a government of national unity, because we knew it's not going to be only the two of them. So the demands of the Democratic Alliance is not surprising to us at all. They have been wanting to co-govern with the ANC all along. They have been wanting to stop the ANC from implementing its manifesto and the overwhelming mandate given by South Africans. That's why they're calling themselves opposition party. That's why they went to campaign against the ANC. So it's not surprising what is it that they're demanding there. But of course, we trust that the ANC will not fall into that. I mean, the Democratic Alliance, they know that they can't be deputy president of the country. But if they happen to be, well, so we will have to contend with that, because perhaps that will be the agreement that they have. What we are worried about is the influence that the EA will have on the government, which the influence will include reversing the progress and the gains that was made over the 30 years by our revolution. We know that we do not share with the Democratic Alliance on the foreign policies. We know that we do not share with the Democratic Alliance when it comes to national minimum wage. We know that we do not share with the Democratic Alliance when it comes to the size and the role that the state institutions must play in delivering social services to our people, including the delivering service delivery to our people. So they want a lean and mean, a kind of a state department, so as it were. So we hope those the parties to the GNU are not going to capitulate on that and give in to the demands of the DA, because that will spell disaster in terms of the role of what the ANC have always believed to be a capable and developmental state. You can't have a capable and developmental state with a fewer headcount in the public service. You can't have a developmental state when you auction off or you sell off all your SOEs that are supposed to intervene in the driving of the economy, so that you even have a capacity to discipline capital, when capital doesn't want to invest in the economy of the country. But without the state institutions or what we call network industry, you are incapable as a state to intervene in the economy. So we hope they are not going to capitulate that much. Not that they can't accommodate some of their demands, but all we are saying that it's not surprising that the DA is demanding the things that they are demanding, and we're not going to be impatient with the president. It's understandable. You've got 10 plus parties to engage with before you formulate the cabinet. We are not impatient. We know we've got the president, we've got the executive authority as of now since he has been inaugurated. We still have our DGs intact, all the civil servants at work. That's why the country is moving. So we're not rushing. We're not really rushing about that. We think whatever decision must be taken at a time when it is correct to do so, but also having considered all factors so that we don't start and collapse at the same time.
Mr. Chingange, before we let you go, where to from here? We know that you're talking about a national, intervention. You're going out to mobilize your workers, and there's also talks around that dialogue that is needed in terms of what can be expected around September, August. What is planned there, and what is your understanding of this national dialogue, and what would be then your role as Cosatu where that is concerned?
Firstly, on the National Day of Action, in terms, as you said, workers have always calculated when the attacks on their rights is heightening, and then decide to come out and defend them. Given even when it was the ANC and ANC alone governing, it didn't stop us from having to defend our rights of collective bargaining, against casualization and labor brokering and so on and so on. So we can see now it's a pattern that has been coming over the past 2 years, but also we now know that some of the parties that are in the GNU are against. So we're now mobilizing ourselves, doing build-up campaigns between August and September. We're going to have a massive stay away to protect the right of workers across the sectors. And as far as the national dialogue is concerned, we heard about it. Apparently, it's part of the statement of intent. The president has accepted it. We are part of the civil society as a federation. We will participate in it. Again, it will be the content. So how is the national dialogue going to link with the content of the GNU? Is it the same thing? Is it going to be a platform where it gives us to also input on what must go in the GNU? Because we are quite clear that probably the departments are going to be reconfigured. Probably the policy shift, if you bring together the various manifestos as they are, there's bound to have a policy shift from what we know. So we need to be part of that, to put the content so that the workers' aspirations also are not lacking in that interest. But we're quite clear. We will be participating in the national dialogue. It can't be a national dialogue when workers' voice is not present. So we will be there. Once those who are preparing or are organizing it reach out to us in terms of being part of the steering committee, including in terms of the content, and also seeing what is it that is going to be the form of it, we will be there. We will put our views. We will represent South Africans, also represent workers there.
Thank you very much, sir, for your time. It's coming through there as Cosatu's first deputy president, giving us a sense of the 3-day of the Central Executive Committee meeting and how then they are actually taking sense or making sense of the politics of the day and where they find themselves. But to hear them saying that as the workers, they're going to be mobilizing around August, September, this will be the National Day for that dialogue, or towards the dialogue that will flesh out are going to be 7th administration where the government unit concerns.
Well, thank you to our SABC economics reporter Katlego Legodi crossing to us from that particular press briefing.